Good afternoon. I'm Orville Abrahams, Director of Community Development for the Capital District YMCA. The parade is a celebration of the African diaspora. And typically, what we've seen in our communities in the United States are Puerto Rican Day parades and Dominican Day parades and Caribbean Day parades and African American Day parades, which are all fantastic and should continue. But what we've decided to do is combine the entire African diaspora, of which, as most people would recollect, African peoples have been spread out across the world: Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latino, African-American, as well as the African nations themselves. So there are African diaspora folks living on every continent, involved in every type of work, contributing their culture, contributing their education, and all their gifts to societies around the world. So what we decided to do was celebrate that, bring it up to light, bring it into the light, let people know, educate, share the culture. The culture of Africa, some nations and regions in Africa, is spread throughout the world in many different forms. You see it in music, in dance, in education. A lot of folks don't know that some of the first libraries in the world were on the African continent before they were even in Europe. And those are the things that we want to bubble up. And more specifically, what goes on in this community, this region. There are many, many contributions by people from the African diaspora, and continue to be. So we want to bring those things to light. We're very proud of what happens in this region in terms of cultural celebrations. You have Greek celebrations over at St. Sophia's and other places. You have Polish celebrations. You have Italian celebrations. You have Irish celebrations, and they should be celebrated. And what we want to do is also celebrate contributions, culture of the African diaspora. So we decided to do it. We took a leap. It's a small group of volunteers, but very passionate, and people who believe in what we're doing. And we decided we're going to take a chance. We know there's a lot of service groups out there, a lot of great organizations. So we want those organizations that specifically are working towards the African diaspora and their friends and allies, so that an inclusive piece, so that everyone can get a piece of this. And this will be, to my recollection, the first time this has happened in this region. I've talked to some older folks who said there were shorter parades that used to, celebrations that used to go down to Clinton Avenue, but those were African American specifically. And those were probably back in the mid-1950s, and so I've been in Albany since 1970. I haven't seen anything like that. We have a cultural day, or family day, that's put on by New York State OGS, which is a statewide celebration. And in recent years, that started off as a weekend. Now it's about 5 hours. And it's a really good event, but it's truncated, it's short. It just doesn't give the full breadth of what needs to be said and celebrated about people from the diaspora. So this region demographically is changing. There are a lot of folks from the diaspora in this region that have immigrated here. So you have a lot of folks from African nations, like West Africa, East Africa, that have come here to work, to go to school. There's tremendous medical work here. There's a base for medical work. There's a base for educational work. So those types of employment are huge here, and it attracts very talented and educated people, not just from Europe, but from African nations: Nigeria, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Ethiopia, Liberia. They're here, and they have their own organizations here too. So part of what we want to do is try to bring as much of that together as we can, so people can see really the full breadth of it. So there's a Great Mississippi Day celebration that happens in the city, which is absolutely foundationally wonderful. It talks about the Great Migration. But there's a couple of migrations that go on. Happened in the 60s when they changed immigration law, which allowed more Africans and people from places like India to come here. but also tons of people from the Caribbean nations started to come here. So we just want to get it all together, celebrate it, and build from there. Grow it, make it into something that the region really appreciates. So this is not just for people of African descent. This is for the region. I love going to the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I love the pageantry. I get to learn about the history, the culture. It's a highlight for this region. So the Memorial Day, the Veterans Day, these are things that make this region a better place to live for everybody when we're celebrating what's good about us. And that's what we want to do. Oh, it'll take place August 31st, more importantly. August 31st of this year, it'll start at 11 a.m. We hope to start marching at 11 a.m. This is the first time we're doing it, so we're keeping our fingers crossed on the start marching piece. But I think with the group of organizers we have, talented folks, dedicated folks, and some of them have experience. None of us has ever produced a parade before. We've produced events. So there's an extra element here of movement. It involves the police department and the city. They've been very kind. They've been very generous in letting us, proceed down Lark Street. We're going to start here symbolically linking the two most prominent African American communities. Let's call it that for now. The Arbor Hill West Hill will start there. We'll conclude in the South End, where historically you've seen most of the folks from the diaspora be located and continue to be located. We'll cross right across the business section on Lark Street, which is also symbolic because now we're cutting through the heart of Albany, and we're connecting those two communities, and we have representation from both communities in this event. And it's just a really great idea. We're going to pull it off. We're gonna make it into an annual tradition and a model. So the St. Patrick's Day Parade's been going on for 69 years. So 69 years from now, I want somebody to say, hey, that African Heritage Parade has been going on for 69 years, still going strong, still infusing pride in this community. So that's where it is.
What other organizations are involved?
Okay, so we've got, I mentioned the City of Albany, so we have the Community Outreach Office from the City of Albany. We've got the Council of Neighborhood Associations. We have a diverse group. So we've got the Nigerian Association. We're talking to them. We're the Ivory Coast Association. We have the Ghanaian Association. If you just want to talk about African national groups, we have the Caribbean Association that's involved. We have a lot of support from the Albany Common Council. So that group has, in recent years, seen more members from the diaspora in there. The Albany County Legislature. I've got a list here. We're going to get the school district involved. We're reaching out to various Latino groups. We reached out to Centro Civico, the Albany Latin Festival Association, which will have their event a week before ours. So Trinity, Snug, a lot of service organizations are involved in this. The Housing Authority in Albany is helping us too. Black Greek letter organizations, so you're talking about the fraternities and the sororities that are involved. A Village, the NAACP, we've reached out to the Urban League, the African American Cultural Center. So a wide range of groups. And we've even got some student groups. We've reached out to the local colleges, and we're asking them to participate. It may be difficult for them since the students are traditionally on break, but they have considered that. We've gotten some generous sponsorship, need more, from organizations around here that are very supportive of a lot of community events. So we're very proud and thrilled, happy that it's coming together. We're going to have dance groups, so we're going to get to see young people dance. We're going to have gotta have music. Gotta have music. So some of the drummers that were here for Juneteenth, we're engaging them to be in the African drummers to be in this also, and probably some other musical acts. So it's going to be great. It'll be very interesting. And as I said, never in recent memory, never done before, not to this scale. So very nervous about it, but very excited at the same time. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. As the clock gets closer, the excitement starts to build, and it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of churches are also involved. I want to mention that because those are great social institutions, gathering places, sources of strength and empowerment for traditionally for African diaspora groups, as well as any other group. So they are the bedrock of this community and communities like this, and they have to have a prominent position. So we're going to be recognizing some of the folks in our community, some of them from the past, but mostly the folks that are still with us, who have been great advocates, contributors, and catalysts for people from the diaspora. So I'm not going to announce them right now, but in a couple of weeks or so, we'll put out a slate of who our honorees are, and our theme is a unity theme, is a stronger together theme, which is also a YMCA theme. Better together, stronger together. So we're looking forward to that, and like I said, I'm just excited. I'm really excited, and the support I've gotten from groups like the library, it's been fantastic, fantastic. Best way is to contact me. And on the flyers, my contact information is there. We also have a website where you can find information. It's a nascent website that is in development, but it is public. And that's www.cdahc.org. It stands for Capital District African Heritage Consortium. So I hope I got the H in there. CDAHC. Yeah. So there'll be some basic information there. There'll be some contact information. There'll be maybe a flyer about the parade, giving some logistics. We held an informational session on the event this past Tuesday at the Albany Public Library main branch. We're going to hold a second informational session there. I believe it's at the main branch too on August 22nd. So if people want to get involved, they contact me. If they have a group and want to be in the parade, we can give them material. They can use the contact information on the website to get to me, or contact me at oabrahams@cdymca.org, or just call the YMCA. They all know who I am. And they can get involved that way. And we need volunteers. We need people on the day of. We're going to need people to walk with groups, make sure that we're going to train them, even though we've never done it before. We're going to train them to keep groups gapped perfectly, or except so groups aren't running into each other, and have them with signs out there so you know where your group is and who you're going to be with, and it's going to be great. We're hoping to get 25 groups. I think we're at about 20 now, so that's pretty good. The parade route is 1.8 miles as it stands right now, and that's a little shorter than the St. Patrick's Day Parade, and it covers some really important territory. So we're marching through basically the heart of the city of Albany, and we'll see how that goes. We've got a lot of suggestions for parade routes. So if this works out great, we might keep it, but if someone comes up with a better route in the future, or we might do that might consider that. So there's also room on our committee, so to be involved in the planning and the production of this. And one of the things that the parade is a singular event, but it is really the end of our calendar. We started a group that is determined to link many of the services and other organizations that serve the diaspora, because they're all doing things and they're all doing great work, but if we can form a sort of connection between those groups, one of our aims is to grow and empower those groups also, to make sure that they're supported, that people know about their events, either through social media, word of mouth, etc. There's a lot of that going on, but none of it is what we call centralized and a central repository for that information. And we want to have a cooperative spirit amongst as many groups as we can, so they support each other, so that they can grow. Not to co-opt any group's particular mission, but to make sure they're supported. So building philanthropy and building capacity amongst those groups is important. So that would be our yearly charge. And then we come to the end of the year, we'll celebrate with an event like a parade. We started with the parade because that's the easiest attention getter. That's the way you really get folks to go, wow, what is this all about? You get the parade, then you say, oh, we are also embarking on a broader strategy to connect groups, build your support bases, build your ability to function as an organization, raise funds, expend, get participants in your services, etc. So that is our overarching goal, and then parade to celebrate. So it's fairly ambitious, but I believe the people that are involved are, again, committed. They're people that have a track record of doing this kind of work. They're people who are showing extraordinary passion and conviction in getting some of this work done. And I think it's great for the region. I really do. Yes, I do. And because the divisiveness that is so pervasive in our country now is pulling groups apart. And what we want to do, especially for a group of the African diaspora, which is surprisingly diverse. And I shouldn't say surprisingly, but it's very diverse. But there's strength in community, there's strength in numbers, and when certain groups are being downplayed, ignored, misrepresented, it's important for them to come together and talk about what their attributes are, what to celebrate, build unity through that. Let people know all the contributions that they've had and their rich history, and build pride that way. Pride in your own communities, I think, is fantastic. Build pride, come together instead of being torn apart. It's a very divisive atmosphere that we live in, especially politically, and that tends to trickle down into many of our organizations and our social norms. So I think it's very important that things like this happen, especially this African Heritage Parade, bringing groups together to celebrate what is good, acknowledging challenges, but coming together with hope. There's probably not a lot of communities, especially like the African diaspora community, have had the challenges that they've had throughout history. And to be able to still be on your feet, prospering, have relevancy, have hope is an incredible thing. The strength of the diaspora communities is incredible. So I'm not talking just about American folks that were born into enslavement in America. I'm talking about colonialism throughout the world that has happened in the continent of Africa. And for those communities that are now here to bond, build strength, and continue to grow, And all the false narratives that are out there about the African communities, folks that are migrating here from Africa. Studies are showing it's very well educated, probably more educated than the average United States citizen, because those folks are coming. The folks that are able to leave some of those countries are educated. We're talking masters and PhD levels. They come over here, they get underemployed, but they still manage to prosper. They still, the American dream, to come to this country because it has some opportunities, but there are some challenges. And if we can come together and celebrate the strength, the journey that African peoples have taken in this hemisphere, and what they've been able to build throughout the hundreds of years of challenges that they've had, it's incredible. That gives me great hope when I think of what my ancestors, I'm from the Caribbean, what my ancestors have had to put up with, the struggles they've had to overcome, and that they're still on their feet and they're still moving forward in a very positive way. Happy to celebrate that. And using folks that were from enslaved in the Americas, in North America, and the communities and the power that they've built, and the folks that are suffering under colonialism in the African countries, and what they've built, for us to all be here and celebrate that and still be contributors to this country and to these cultures. Fantastic. So, yes. Short answer.